the schedule's out. The new schedule's out. 2024 schedule officially been released, and the numbers, 36 regular season events. We're going to stick with the 3 playoff events and the 8 big boys. They are not called elevated events. They are not called designated events. They are now called signature events, going along with the Players' Championship. And for majors, Patrick, that makes up the meat of the 2024 schedule, which also includes another big bump to that FedEx Cup champion, up to $25 million.
Gosh, these guys are just off so bad. You really have to feel for them.
By the way, Patrick,
$25 million.
$25 million is like what Tiger earned in his entire FedEx Cup bonus career.
Just a heads up, I'm saving Rory McIlroy for the 24 Tour Championship.
Yeah, good idea. Good idea. This is the especially with the calendar year, back to the calendar year schedule, Patrick. This is basically, the biggest shakeup, the biggest change that we've had in quite some time.
Yeah, especially when you think about those 8 signature events being 70 to 80 players and the different pathways, which I'm sure we'll touch on and how to get into those. I think, one, there are plenty of pathways for players to get into those events. John Rahm talked about it today at his press conference. He was one of those players who was pushing against the 4 sponsors exemptions that each tournament has. He does not believe in those. I tend to agree with him as well that, look, it's going to reward the hot hand where you have the next 10 and the swing 5. It sounds like the 100 from Succession, the newsletter thing that Kendall Roy's trying to make some of these names. But there are so many ways to get into it, from the top 50 in the FedEx Cup rankings this year to playing well in the fall, playing well over a month stretch, being top 30 in the world, winning once gets you in as well. So I think they've done the cadence around the U.S. Open is really the only pushback I would have, but it's kind of tough when you want to have 8 signature events. I'm excited for Pebble, again, what they've done to that tournament, where the amateurs are going to be cut loose after the 36 holes. They're pushing it down to only 2 courses instead of 3. Prime time on the East Coast here. It could be for great viewing. We haven't seen a great field at Pebble Beach since the 2019 U.S. Open. So that was the big change, them getting signature status instead of the WM Phoenix Open, which I think will be fine, just as it's the WM Phoenix Open. People are going to want to play. It's going to be a party. It's going to be fun. But for me, the one real thing I looked at, and they had the problem this year as well, was around the U.S. Open. They moved the Memorial with the RBC Canadian Open. So the Memorial precedes the U.S. Open immediately. Then you have the Travelers right after that. It's a big 3-week stretch for these guys.
Memorial Pinehurst is a bloodbath. Like that's nasty.
Yeah. So KP, the 8 signature events, the Century, no longer called the Tournament of Champions because it's not a Tournament of Champions.
It hasn't been for like 3 years though.
I like this. I usually hate it when they change names of things and get rid of. This is actually smart to do this for Maui.
Yeah.
So that'll kick us off. That's a no cut event. The others with no cut will be Pebble, RBC Heritage, Wells Fargo, Travelers. The 36-hole cuts in signature events will be Riviera, Genesis, API, that's at Bay Hill, and the Memorial.
Yeah, maybe Josh can I had a tweet about this yesterday where I just kind of gave a thumbs up and thumbs down to different events and like things that sort of played out with this. If you could pull that up, that'd be awesome. But listen, like this is complicated stuff. It's a logistical freaking nightmare, right? To like try to figure all this out, and you're moving a bunch. I mean, usually like we used to get excited about one change in a year, right? And now it's like they're changing so many different things at the same time. So I want to preface any criticism by saying like, I know this is difficult. I think that Tournament of Champions or the Century is great, and starting January 1 with a clean FedEx Cup number slate is very good. I think, Patrick touched on this, the paths into signature events, like that's really good because it makes it more of a meritocracy. Love Torrey finishing on Saturday. Love Pebble not having AMs on the weekend. I think the things that stink are the thing that Rom said today, like the sponsor invites into these signature events. It's like, wait a second. So it's a meritocracy, but like, what are those sponsor invites for?
Justin Thomas.
Okay. Do we need 4 of them?
Hold on.
What about Tiger Woods?
Let's strip it down.
That'd be 2.
On the surface, why would sponsors want to have a say in players in the field?
Justin Thomas, I think.
But I'm saying like names aside, right? Like this has been going on for decades, right? Why do sponsors want to be able to choose players who compete?
Well, if you're like, say, the RBC Heritage, and you have RBC guys that aren't going to be in the field,
okay,
so that they'll come back when
brand. Okay,
so they'll come back when they're stars, right?
Build
like
relationships with potentially younger players to keep them coming back, which they think will help with future sales, right?
Yeah, but it's also needle moving, Rick. I mean, if you got some star that's not in one of these fields, then you extend the invites, and there are other benefits that are involved. It's enticing. I mean, throughout the year, tournament directors are visiting other events and leaving gifts and stuff in players' lockers and things like that to entice them to say, "Yo, come visit us on the Calabogie Sound next year." I know it's not just an elevated signature event, whatever it is, but they're always trying to field build, because the better the field is, the better the ratings are. The better the ratings are, the more there's purse to be made, and it's really in the end about relationship building and ratings on television.
Well, and something
I guess my point is, KP, to bring it back to kind of where you were originally going with that. I think like 99% of sponsors invites over the years have been worthless, right? They're not moving the needle. They're not for every Jordan Spieth, there are 500 guys that never do anything. There are guys that won the event 15 years ago that do not move the needle. I don't think in this current ecosystem, I don't fully understand why sponsors invites even exist.
Patrick, do you yes. I mean, listen, if you want to make a Tiger Woods, like literally a Tiger Woods rule, so the Tiger can get into tournaments.
If you've won 80 or more events, you can play anything you want whenever you want.
But it's like, man, should isn't the whole point of this so that Justin Thomas isn't in the event? Like, and I don't mean that like, of course I want to watch Justin Thomas play Pebble, but if you are the true meritocracy, and it's like, well, but if you're a big enough name, then it's like kind of not a true meritocracy, right? And I think one thing that's interesting that Rom said today, I don't know if you have the quote, Patrick, but he said, I hope they use those sponsor exemptions in the right way, or they go to the right people, and it goes to people that are like, or it goes to players that are like close to making it. And I disagree with that. I actually think it should go the other way and go to guys like your Ludwig Abergs, your Gordon Sargents, that are like, they're unable to qualify for the tournament, but they bring in like a certain amount of attraction and entertainment.
Right. It's like Michael Thor Bjornsson. Sorry, Rick.
That's okay.
In the Travelers last year.
Yes.
The kid finished T4.
That was sick.
The Travelers they've always done a great job of extending it to young stars. David in the chat said Ben James, a Connecticut kid from UVA this year, and Thorn Bjornsson was in the field as well. So I totally agree. It shouldn't go to, whoever is 83rd on that list. If that's, I just know Ben Griffin's 70th this week. So if that's a Ben Griffin over a Gordon Sargent, I don't really agree with that.
So this week is important, Mark, because getting into next week, top 50 gets you into all of this, right? So if you are in the top 50, you make the BMW Championship, you're in every signature event. The other ways that you can get in, what they're calling as the next 10, I'll probably trademark that. They should trademark that, which is the top 10 in the current FedEx Cup standings, not otherwise exempt. So that'll obviously rotate throughout the year. The Swing 5, which is the top 5 point earners between those signature events, because there's kind of mostly a cadence of 2 on, 3 off, 2. Like there's kind of that cadence. And then top 30 in the OWGR and all tournament winners from the current season will also be able to get it.
Yeah. First off, I think we should have a T-shirt made for us four saying the next 4.
The core 4. The core 4.
Well, we were actually talking about this last week where, the whole storyline in Greensboro was making the 70. But it was floated at a dinner table, which I thought was pretty clever, that, just making the Memphis event was one thing, but the higher you could ascend up the field last week, the more it put you in position. And it was sort of the number of 40 was pitched there because, like, if you're 40th going into this event, you can't really play your way out of the BMW and hence the top 50. So yeah, absolutely. I think the top 50 is a big deal. It's a reward for a heck of a season. That next 10, it all sort of makes sense right now. Just with that swing stuff, though, we've got that run that Kyle was talking about where you've got those 3 massive events in a row. And there's going to be stuff lost in the wash there. But the truth is, you're always going to have situations like that. It does feel, in a way, that this was cobbled together really quickly. And we'll see how the whole thing shakes out. But look, we're in the 17th season, I think it is, of the playoffs now, the FedEx Cup playoffs. And they've gone through iterations in the first few years, and now they're onto something that it seems to be working. They're identifying a good player to win. There'll still be critics, but there'll always be this influx. And I would hazard a wager right now that next year this time we'll be talking about a situation that those qualifying criteria may be different. In fact, I'm pretty certain of that.
So to put a real world example on this, so the season will start the Century. That's a signature event. Then there will be the Siggy, the Century Siggy. Then there will be 3 events that are non-signature events: the Sony Open, the American Express, and the Farmers. The best 5 point earners who are not otherwise exempt for those during that stretch of 3 will get into the signature event of the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. That is, that's actually my favorite part of this. I like the idea of these little sprints where if you can get hot for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, you can make a lot of money, a lot of points. We see that. I actually like this. There's a lot of ways to honestly, there's a lot of ways to sell this. You sell this, Swing 5 sponsorship for whatever, and you're keeping track of leaderboards and this, that, and the other thing. It makes little segments within the larger season because the season's really long. I like this.
Yes, I'm with you. And it's going to force guys who have not been playing well, Justin Thomas for argument's sakes, to play more than I think what he was expecting, because you can set yourself up for the rest of the season with a run. You get in one and then you have a big finish because there are tournament winners, correct, that get in. Mm-hmm. My question is, what is, and I'm going to go there, what's the FedEx Cup points breakdown in these events? Is it expanded? Because this will be, to me, like what the World Golf Championships were, where if you were in those things inside the top 64, it was basically perpetuating itself. And once you were in, it was hard to get out because you were earning these points with no cuts. And if you were out, it was super hard to get in. It was like pulling chicken's teeth to get into one of these events if you weren't inside the top 64 in the rankings.
The FedEx Cup points for the signature events have been increased. So 700 for the winner. Patrick, do you know, does that mean the regular ones are going to stay at 500?
Correct.
That's our assumption. Okay. And the alternate field are going to stay at 300?
300. Yeah. Or they call them additional events now.
I don't think those should exist. I haven't thought those should exist for a while.
Come on, man. They're coming to Dirty Myrtle this year. Okay.
So there are a couple of new events. Myrtle Beach, Patrick. Yeah, but that should be showcased as its own.
No, it should not.
Can we stay on the FedEx Cup points for a second?
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So, I forgot what I was going to say about it.
Perfect. So 700 for the signature event, 500.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. This is what I was going to say. It's somebody did this whole spreadsheet and tweeted it at me, and it was really interesting. But it's preposterous that you get as many points for winning the Barracuda as you do for finishing like 4th at the Open Championship.
You're
like,
saying those are way more for finishing 4th at the Open.
Yes. What's harder to do, win the Barracuda or finish 4th at the Open?
So what's your proposal?
But you're the guy who always talks to me about strength of field.
What's your proposal?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the Open strength of field.
What if every player, based on their play, based on their ranking, whatever, was assigned a number of FedEx Cup points? So John Rahm is worth 50 points. So if he's in your field, now that's 50 points in the pool. And Rory McIlroy,
that's the world ranking now, isn't it?
Sure, cool. So do it for FedEx Cup points, right? So it would be strength of field related within your own ecosystem.
Yeah, but to Mark's, this is where it gets hard because Mark's right. You can't have a system where the same 50 guys stay in it where there's no churn, right? Like that's the whole point of
all right
having a marathon.
Do what I just said, but flip it, and now John Rahm's worth 1.
What I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand that.
So now Griffin is worth more FedEx Cup points. So the weaker fields are worth more FedEx Cup points.
Well, so we had this discussion when
the
idea came back.
Okay, so
you've broken me, Rick. You've broken my brain.
To incentivize the best players going different places, and you need to incentivize the fact that there needs to be more churn, and these 50 guys can't just protect their own points by always playing together. So if the Barracuda was worth 1,000 FedEx Cup points, one, you'd get more churn, or Rory McIlroy would show up.
Yeah, but then he would be incentivized to play the Barracuda over the Open Championship.
No, he would not. Because
he wouldn't.
And money. What if you inverse the money and the FedEx Cup points, right? So if you play over here, you're going to get a lot of money opportunities. You play over here, you're going to get a lot of FedEx Cup points opportunities.
Hey, Rick,
you lost me, man.
I'm Rick. Rick, I've heard a rumor that Andy Kasdar is stepping down at the tour. There might be a position open there with.
I don't.
Give me a whiteboard.
Rumor. Yeah, I don't know. The math on it is very difficult because you can't have a situation where finishing 4th at the Open is worth fewer FedEx Cup points than winning the Barracuda. That can't happen.
Agreed.
Like that. Go ahead, Patrick.
No, I was just going to say we touched on the churn when this news came out, whenever it was with we said is Seamus Power a part of the churn? But to Mark's point, it is almost like a closed door into these signature events where the world ranking says, right, we've had that debate before, which is more difficult, winning a 30-man field of really good players or a 150-man field of just average players. World ranking says the average player field is more difficult, and that's what these guys have to go through in order to get into the signature events, so that are worth more FedEx Cup points. So if you're outside the top 50, I don't want to say you're screwed, but you're close to it, and it makes this week that much more important.
Well, here's the thing, Rick, and then we can go to break after this. But
Josh is begging for a break.
Yeah, he's beating down the door. Maybe you make it to where it's like. Maybe it's like relegation. Like, hey, if you're not in the top, no matter, like, maybe you have separate point structures, right? Where it's like, okay, well, the Siggies are this and everything else is this. And the bottom 20 or whatever, I don't know. I'm like making this stuff up off the top of my head, but the bottom whatever in the Siggies gets replaced by all these guys that played in the other events. And so you keep the churn, but you maintain the, you're not incentivizing the top players to go play all these other events to try to collect points, if that makes sense.
Well, relegation is what Liv is doing next season or something, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
I saw that. I saw there's a green zone, a yellow zone, and a red zone. Right, Patrick?
Traffic stop.
Oh, so if Brooks finishes in the bottom 5, he's relegated? Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
No, no.
Captains are exempt from the relegation.
It's fake
Captains and
relegation. That's not
captains'
real.
brothers are exempt from relegation.
Sure, of
Everyone
course.
knows that.